Right now, inside the corridors of power at Newcastle United, there is a conversation happening that the club never wanted to have. Bruno Guimaraes has told his employers directly that he wants to leave this summer and join Arsenal. This is not speculation dressed up as fact. This has been confirmed. Sky Sports News reported it as breaking news, and Newcastle themselves have offered no denial. They have simply declined to comment. In football, silence from a club in this situation usually means one thing. They know it is true, and they do not yet know how to respond. For Arsenal, this is the moment their long-term interest in Guimarães stops being background noise and becomes an active transfer battle. 2 bids have already been placed on the table. The first came in at £55 million. Newcastle rejected it without hesitation. The second offer, delivered through the player's agent, rose to £65 million. Newcastle rejected that too. 2 firm knockbacks in a matter of weeks tells you everything about where Newcastle currently stand. They are not interested in negotiating from that price range at all. So here is what is genuinely at risk in this situation. Bruno Guimaraes is not a squad player being quietly moved on. He is a first-team midfielder that Newcastle built parts of their identity around. If Arsenal push forward with an underwhelming bid, they risk a prolonged and public standoff that could drag on for months, unsettle their own midfield planning, and hand Newcastle every incentive to dig in purely out of principle. On the other side, if Newcastle refuse to engage at all, they risk having a player who has already told them, in his own words, that his preference is to leave. That is a delicate position for any manager to manage in a dressing room. Before I break down exactly how this is unfolding, step by step, this is exactly the kind of transfer story that rewards patience and detail rather than headlines. If you want the full picture on every Arsenal move this summer, explained properly and without the noise, this is the channel to be subscribed to. Hit that subscribe button now because this Guimarães situation is going to move quickly, and I intend to break down every twist as it happens. Now let us go through this properly, piece by piece, starting with what is confirmed and what is currently just being reported. The first piece of information comes directly from Fabrizio Romano, one of the most trusted voices in football transfer reporting. His words were precise. Arsenal want Bruno Guimaraes. Arsenal's opening bid was £55 million, and that was rejected by Newcastle. Then, last week, Arsenal indicated to Newcastle, through the player's agent, that they were prepared to reach £65 million, but Newcastle still closed the door. Romano then added something crucial about the player's own mindset. On the player's side, Guimarães wants to go to Arsenal. He wants to be respectful toward Newcastle. He is not the type of player threatening to sell me or I will create issues. That distinction matters enormously. Romano also revealed that sources involved in the situation believe a transfer fee somewhere around £90 million could be the true starting point for serious discussions, and that Arsenal are not currently offering that amount. My analysis here is simple. This tells us Arsenal are negotiating in good faith, but at a valuation that Newcastle consider insulting to their own asking price. A gap of £25 million between the rejected offer and the figure being floated as a realistic starting point is not a small gap. It is the difference between a transfer that gets resolved quickly and one that becomes a summer-long saga. The second piece of reporting, again from Romano, focused not on the numbers but on the driving force behind this pursuit. Mikel Arteta is pushing to sign Bruno Guimaraes. Romano was clear that this is not the first time Arsenal have been linked with the player, but this time it is Arteta himself who is driving the interest. He is described as a genuine admirer of Guimarães as a footballer. What this tells me as an analyst is that this is not a boardroom-driven pursuit born out of convenience. This is a manager who has identified a specific player he believes fits his system, and he is applying personal pressure behind the scenes to get the deal over the line. When a manager pushes this hard publicly, through trusted journalists, it usually signals genuine long-term planning, rather than a speculative approach. The third screenshot adds another layer, this time from a regional source with direct Newcastle knowledge. Bruno Guimaraes' agent is understood to have given Arsenal encouragement that the player wants to leave Newcastle this summer. According to that reporting, Arsenal have been told that an offer of over £60 million could be enough to sign him. Here is where things get interesting from an analytical standpoint. Notice the contradiction in the numbers being reported. One source suggests around £90 million is the real starting point for negotiations. Another source, closer to the Newcastle side, suggests over £60 million could be enough. This is a completely normal part of transfer negotiations. Clubs, agents, and intermediaries often float different numbers publicly to shape the market and manage expectations. My honest read is that the truth likely sits somewhere between these two figures, and that is exactly why Arsenal are reportedly preparing a new official bid rather than walking away. The fourth screenshot is the moment that changes the tone of this entire story. Sky Sports News confirmed it has been told directly that Bruno Guimaraes has told Newcastle United he wants to leave and join Arsenal. Newcastle, for their part, are not making any comment on the situation. This is the single most important development in the entire Guimarães story. This is no longer just journalists reporting interest from the Arsenal side. This is the player himself, formally communicating his desire to leave directly to his employers. Newcastle's silence should not be mistaken for indifference. In football, a club that has nothing to hide usually issues a quick denial to calm supporters. Newcastle have not done that. Their silence speaks volumes. The fifth screenshot, once again from Romano, pulls all of this together into one clear picture. Arsenal are preparing a new official bid for Bruno Guimaraes because Arteta wants him. £55 million has already been rejected. A second package worth £65 million was rejected too. Romano states that a fee somewhere between £65 million and £90 million could accelerate talks. He also confirms that Bruno told Newcastle last week that he wants the Arsenal move, but he will not create issues, and he is leaving the final decision in the hands of the club. My analysis on this final piece is that Arsenal now have every green light they need from the player's side. What remains is entirely a financial negotiation with Newcastle. The player has been respectful and professional throughout. He has not gone public, he has not refused to train, and he has not forced the situation. That actually strengthens Arsenal's position in one specific way. Newcastle cannot claim the player is being disruptive, but they also know he wants out, which puts long-term pressure on them to eventually accept a fair fee, rather than risk a player who has mentally already moved on. Moving to the sixth screenshot, the subject shifts entirely away from Guimarães. Former Arsenal defender Nacho Monreal has stated that selling Martin Odegaard this summer would be a mistake for the club. Monreal believes the current Arsenal captain remains vital, praising his ability to control games even after a season disrupted by injury. In the same comments, Monreal named Ivica Kvaratskhelia and Bradley Barcola, both currently at Paris Saint-Germain, as his personal dream signings to strengthen Arsenal's left-sided attack. This needs to be framed correctly for viewers. This is not transfer news. This is opinion. Monreal is not reporting a deal. He is not claiming Arsenal are in talks with either player, and he is not suggesting Odegaard is actually being sold. This is simply a respected former player giving his personal view. It is worth noting because it reflects a wider conversation among pundits about Arsenal's captain and their attacking options, but viewers should understand clearly that no transfer action is confirmed here. The seventh screenshot brings us to Antonio Nusa, a 21-year-old Norwegian winger currently at RB Leipzig. According to reporting, Arsenal and Tottenham are both competing for his signature, with Leipzig valuing him at £51.3 million. Nusa is said to be open to a move to the Premier League, and he is impressed at the World Cup. His contract runs until the year 2029, but reports suggest a fee close to €50 million could be enough to convince Leipzig to sell. My take here is that this is very clearly presented as a competitive rumour rather than a confirmed pursuit. Two Premier League clubs being linked to the same player at the same time usually means we are still in the early information gathering stage, not the negotiation stage. Nusa is a name to watch, particularly given his World Cup form, but nothing here suggests concrete Arsenal talks yet. The eighth screenshot concerns Josh Achimpong, a young Chelsea defender. The reporting states he would be keen on joining Arsenal this summer. Chelsea themselves do not want to sell him, but the player wants to leave, and he has been offered to other clubs given the uncertainty over his long-term future at Chelsea. This is another case where the framing matters enormously. Chelsea, the club that currently owns his contract, have shown no willingness to sell. That is the key detail. Interest from a player's side, without willingness from the selling club, rarely converts into a completed transfer in the short term. This one sits firmly in speculative territory. The ninth screenshot returns us to a name we will discuss in far more depth later in this analysis, Manu Kone. According to Italian reporting, Arsenal have held talks with Kone's representatives, and an agreement has been reached over personal terms ahead of a proposed move once the World Cup concludes. The next step, according to this reporting, is negotiating an actual transfer fee with his current club, Roma, who value him at around £43 million. This is a significant step up from pure speculation. Personal terms being agreed, even ahead of a club-to-club fee negotiation, usually indicates real substance behind a transfer story. This is one of the more advanced situations in Arsenal's current list of targets. The 10th screenshot shifts focus away from Arsenal entirely. Real Madrid have reportedly given Vinicius Jr. a deadline to resolve his contract situation before August. Madrid want clarity, and they are said to be prepared to put the Brazilian winger on the market if no new agreement is reached. This has no direct Arsenal connection based on what has been reported, But it is worth flagging for context because any major player entering the open market can shift the wider landscape of possible transfer activity across Europe. For now, this remains a Real Madrid internal matter. The 11th screenshot brings very encouraging news for Arsenal supporters. Arsenal are reported to be very close to agreeing personal terms with Aston Villa's Morgan Rogers. The England international is said to be ready to commit to a 5-year contract with Arsenal. This is one of the more advanced and positive stories in this entire batch of reporting. Personal terms being close to agreement is usually one of the final steps before a formal transfer is completed, assuming the two clubs can also agree a fee. Of the stories covered so far, this feels among the most likely to progress quickly. The 12th screenshot concerns William Saliba, who currently plays for Arsenal. Reports state that Barcelona have now joined Real Madrid and Paris Saint-Germain in showing interest in signing him. However, Arsenal have made their position completely clear. They have no intention of discussing a sale and would only even consider offers in excess of €150 million. This is important to communicate accurately to viewers. Interest from 3 of Europe's biggest clubs is a strong complement to Saliba's stature as a defender, but Arsenal's stance here is firm and unambiguous. There is no indication whatsoever that Arsenal are entertaining a sale. If anything, setting a valuation that high is a clear signal designed to end conversations before they start. The 13th and final screenshot centers on Julian Alvarez, currently at Atletico Madrid. For the first time, according to this reporting, Atletico's ownership has begun considering a potential sale and are open to listening to offers. Their stated preference is for him to move outside of Spain, with Arsenal named among the interested clubs, though Barcelona are reportedly planning to make their own attempt after the World Cup concludes. This one deserves a careful framing. Atletico opening the door to a sale is new and notable, but this remains an early-stage situation. Arsenal being named among interested parties does not confirm active talks. It is a name worth tracking, especially given the ownership's stated preference for a move away from Spain, but nothing here suggests imminent progress. Deep dive. The articles now let us move into the 2 written pieces of reporting that carry the most detail, starting with the story of Manu Kone. Manu Kone is a 25-year-old France international currently playing his football in Italy with Roma, where he helped his club finish 3rd in Serie A last season. Right now, he is representing France at the World Cup, and he has been genuinely impressive. He started in wins over both Iraq and Norway during the group stage, and more recently played a part in a 1-0 victory over Paraguay in the round of 16. His numbers at the tournament back up the eye test. He has completed 93% of his attempted passes, and he has shown a willingness to shoot from distance, attempting 5 shots so far, with 2 of those forcing the goalkeeper into a save. Former France and Manchester United defender Patrice Evra has spoken publicly about Kone's suitability for a move to Arsenal. Evra praised his profile specifically for the Premier League, describing him as a player with real energy, someone who carries the ball well, enjoys duels, and works hard for his team. Evra was careful to add a note of caution as well, saying that the Premier League is faster, that players do not get time to breathe, and that supporters should not judge Kone after only 5 games. According to Evra, if Kone joins a manager who knows how to use him properly, he believes the player has the tools to succeed, and that consistency will be the deciding factor. On the business side, Italian outlet Corriere della Sera has reported that Arsenal have already held talks with Kone's representatives, and personal terms have been agreed for a move to take place after the World Cup finishes. The remaining obstacle is agreeing a transfer fee with Roma, who currently value their player at around £43 million. Interestingly, the same reporting suggests Roma could be open to accepting a lower figure, around £39 million, or €45 million, given that the Italian club is understood to need to generate funds through player sales this summer. Despite all of this movement behind the scenes, Kone himself has been notably composed and focused when asked directly about his future. Speaking to Gazzetta dello Sport, he said that right now he is only thinking about the World Cup, describing it as his first major international tournament and one he has always dreamed of playing in. He stated plainly that he wants to remain exclusively focused on the competition and that conversations about his future will happen after the World Cup is finished. My analysis on the Kone situation is that this is currently the most advanced and most credible pursuit on Arsenal's radar this summer. Personal terms already being agreed is a major step. It removes one of the 2 biggest hurdles in any transfer, leaving only the fee negotiation with Roma. The gap between Roma's valuation of £43 million and their reported willingness to accept £39 million is a relatively narrow one in modern transfer terms, which suggests this deal could move quickly once the World Cup concludes. What I find particularly reassuring from a footballing perspective is Kone's own attitude. He has not used his World Cup platform to discuss his club future. He has not agitated for a move publicly, and he has kept his full focus on performing for France. That level of professionalism is exactly the kind of mentality that tends to translate well into a smooth transition once a transfer is eventually completed. Now let us turn to the second article, which centres on comments made by respected journalist David Ornstein regarding Arsenal's broader transfer approach this summer. Ornstein's central point was that Arsenal have been relatively quiet in the transfer market so far this summer, and he explained exactly why. Arsenal are entering this window from a position of strength. They are Premier League champions, they reached the Champions League final, and their overall squad is already in good shape. Because of that, Ornstein explained, this is not a summer where Arsenal need wholesale changes. Instead, they are being deliberate, trying to build from a position of strength, which he acknowledged is not always an easy task. Ornstein confirmed that goalkeeper Illan Meslier is set to join Arsenal, arriving as a third-choice option behind the club's current goalkeepers. While this is not the most exciting piece of business for supporters, it does confirm at least one active transfer is close to completion. The more significant piece of information from Ornstein concerned Christos Tzolis, a winger currently playing for Club Brugge. Ornstein stated clearly that Arsenal's left-sided attack is an area of real focus for the club this summer, and that conversations have already taken place regarding Tzolis. In Ornstein's own words, that deal feels like it is there to be done whenever Arsenal decide they want to actually complete it. Previous reporting has suggested a fee in the region of £35 million for Tzolis. My analysis on this is that Ornstein's framing here is incredibly telling. He is not describing Tzolis as a difficult negotiation or a competitive chase against other clubs. He is describing a deal that already exists in a workable state, essentially just waiting for Arsenal's internal timing to align. That is a very different situation compared to something like the ongoing Guimarães pursuit, where two bids have already been rejected. With Tzolis, based on everything Ornstein has said, the hold-up appears to be entirely on Arsenal's side, driven by their own strategic timing rather than resistance from Club Brugge. Taken together, both articles paint a consistent picture of how Arsenal are approaching this transfer window. They are not rushing. They are champions, and they are treating this summer with the calm confidence of a club that does not need to panic buy. The Kone situation shows patience paying off, with personal terms already agreed well in advance of a final fee negotiation. The Tzolis situation shows a club sitting on a deal they know they can complete, waiting for the right internal moment to pull the trigger. Combine that with the more dramatic and high-profile Guimarães pursuit, where the player has now directly told his club he wants to leave for Arsenal, and you get a very clear sense of a club working across multiple fronts simultaneously, each at a different stage of readiness. What ties every single one of these stories together, from the confirmed to the speculative, is a clear pattern in exactly where Arsenal are focusing their attention this summer. There is a genuine push in central midfield, shown through both the Guimaraes pursuit and the Kone talks. There is a clear focus on the left side of the attack, shown through the Tzolis interest and the Nusa links. And there is a firm, almost defensive posture around their own prized assets, shown clearly through their stance on William Saliba, where a valuation of over €150 million effectively ends any serious conversation before it begins. That is the full picture as it currently stands. Confirmed news, credible advanced talks, and pure speculation all sitting side by side. And it is important as viewers that you understand exactly which category each story belongs to before drawing your own conclusions. If you found this breakdown useful, make sure you are subscribed, because this Arsenal transfer window is only just getting started, and there is a lot more still to unfold before the season begins.